Hello and a very warm welcome to Sport for Business. We are joined today by Matt McKerrow. He's the CEO of Cycling Ireland, an organisation that has just published a new 4-year strategic plan. Matt, you're very welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And the timing really couldn't be better because you have, as I say, published a 4-year strategic plan looking at how you're going to bring cycling forward, both as a sport, as a participation exercise, and as part of the overall side of society. Tell us a little bit about how the strategic plan has come together and why you feel that now is the right time to be putting it out there.
Thanks, Rob. The strategic plan's been in the works now for about 12 months. I started in the role here in May 2019, very much with the first job being the publication of a strategic plan and I guess setting the aspirations and the targets for the period ahead. We did a series of consultations with our membership and our wider stakeholder group through the back half of last year, and we'd have hoped to have had this up and published earlier in the year. Unfortunately, COVID came upon us all, but as we've responded to the challenges of COVID, one of the silver linings has been, and has been reported in the research, a real upswing in the number of people riding their bikes and the benefits of being on the bike through this period. So in some ways, it's somewhat opportunistic to say this, but as you say, it's the perfect time for the release of this document and to give it a signal to our plans ahead.
Okay, that sort of sense of cyclists almost reclaiming the roads, which feels like a decade ago and yet feels like yesterday as well. It gave rise to massive increase in the numbers of people that were out there cycling, shortfalls in terms of stock and supply coming into cycling retailers. Is the sport, from a participation point of view, now in a stronger position than it's ever been?
I would definitely say so. I'm not sure about than it's ever been, but certainly than it was this time last year. The research that Sport Ireland had published suggesting an extra 250,000 people riding their bike through the pandemic period. So they're great figures, and hopefully we hope that that's a real boon for the sport.
Okay, and how much, from your perspective as the CEO of Cycling Ireland, how much is participation taking up in terms of the overall picture? Because you're a national governing body, you've got targets that you've set yourselves as well in terms of the medal performances. We've got a new generation of cyclists coming through that will perhaps perform better than ever before on a world stage at Olympic and European and World Championship level. But participation touches on all of us to some greater or lesser degree. How much time of yours does that side of it take up?
There's no coincidence that participation is the first pillar named in our plan, and sporting administrators for years have been talking about triangles and the pointy end of the triangle, and it's the old adage, the base of the triangle supports the top of the triangle. So really, participation is really important for us, and so whether it's a case of you jump on your bike because you enjoy it and you feel healthy, that's in some ways that's our job done. Not everyone's going to be an Olympian, but obviously if we want to transition some talented people through into the Olympics and the World Championships, it's about widening that base. So it's about offering programs and opportunities for people to be involved as they want to. And certainly with the diversification of the Olympic program into freestyle BMX and mountain bike, really it's a case where we've got to position ourselves to provide those opportunities for people, and hopefully the more of them there are, the more the cream rises to the top and gives us the opportunity to develop some Olympians in the future, some of those disciplines.
Is there an optimum age or time for people to get involved? We all learn how to ride a bike as kids, and then you go through life and you touch on it again at various different times. But if you want to be riding in a velodrome, well, we'll talk about velodrome in a short while. But if you want to be riding at that level, is there an optimum time, as there would be in most sports, to actually get young people involved in it?
I think if you were to look at the science, and I'm sure there's research for any particular discipline, scientists or coaches could pinpoint that. But I think what we've learnt, and it's the old adage, the performance pathway. Well, there's not really such thing as the pathway as your pathway. So it's a case of when you find it. So I'd say, well, you don't have to be identified at a particular time to break through, or follow a traditional model to be successful in any given discipline. Different people do it different ways, and for some people it works really well to be a late bloomer or to have picked something up early. It's really quite a specialized thing.
Okay. You split it into three pillars. You've got the best part of 100 action points in there that you're going to deliver over the next 4 years. Have you phased it? Is it front loaded? Is there stuff that we're going to see, COVID permitting, over the next 6 months that's going to be very obvious and very visible?
Certainly, and there'd be a number of those 100 action points that we're well into achieving already. So, the way we've looked at it at the highest level, it's about getting more people on bikes, and regardless of their aspiration or their potential. And then it's about some medal-winning performances to inspire people. So there's the two key pillars, if you like, participation and performance. And we have a third pillar that we refer to as the enablers. So they're the things that I guess that run across participation and performance. So we need to have good governance, and we need to communicate with our stakeholders and our members really well. So two big goals and a third pillar that's the glue to pull that together, if you like.
Okay, the ultimate stakeholder, I guess, in relation to most things is government, and we've got a government in place now which contains the Green Party, who you would always imagine have been the friendliest towards a cycling-based society. Not necessarily on the sporting side, but certainly enabling all of us to actually sort of participate and get from A to B safer on a bicycle. We've got a Green Party leader who shows and does what he says he wants us all to do in terms of cycling between offices in Leinster House and the new Dáil in the convention centre. Is it a perfect storm? Is this an optimum time from governmental perspective in terms of you showing that you're willing to actually step forward and produce a plan that is going to have not only strength over the next year and the next 4 years, but in the longer term as well?
Certainly. I mean, I don't know about a perfect storm, but certainly it's a good storm. So it's a case of taking the opportunities when you can get them. Obviously, government a very big stakeholder for us. We have a number of other stakeholders too, though, in terms of our membership, our clubs, and our event organisers. And one of the things I think that this plan signals is that Cycling Ireland wants to set itself as the glue that pulls all this together, to link things, link people who are trying to achieve outcomes, that we can put them in touch with each other. So whether that's the government agenda of road safety or a government agenda of a greener Ireland, we've got something to offer, and we certainly want to play in that space. We're constantly aware, though, that as a relatively small national governing body, there's only so much resource. So really what we've taken the approach with this plan is that we're going to work in partnership with people to achieve these things. So whether that's road safety advocacy or cycle tourism, they'd be two examples of things that aren't necessarily our core business, but there's certainly a space we see ourselves in, and working in partnership with those that perhaps would call it their core business for the betterment of Ireland overall. And the one thing I should say is that we've been very deliberate with our vision that an Ireland enriched by cycling, that we're seen that we're not just a sporting organisation. Yes, we are a sporting organisation, but we appreciate that there's a whole lot of other benefits that we'd like to realise through cycling for the island of Ireland. Obviously, we're an all-island body, 32 counties, so keen that cycling is seen as Cycling Ireland is seen as a united organisation, and that we're aligned right across the island.
Is one of the metrics that you can look at the number of kilometres that are rolled out that are devoted to cycle pathways, or is that just a very urban way of looking at it?
Certainly you could do it that way. You do wonderful things with data these days. We have a number of partners where into the future, I'm sure we will look at the number of kilometres cycled, or the number of kilometres that weren't travelled via a vehicle that emits carbon emissions. certainly they're all things that are there in the future and that can be quantified via data. I mean, the number of kilometres of cycleway is probably not a metric that we're going to look at in a great level of detail, but it certainly would be something that would point to the increased use of bikes and the increased number of people on bikes.
You work with Dublin City Council on the Great Dublin Bike Ride, which has been very popular over the last number of years. Are there any plans? Is that going to take place in 2020, or is that something that's going to prove very challenging in the current COVID climate?
Certainly in COVID times with mass public gatherings, it's something we've really looked at. It's a great disappointment to not be able to run the event, because we do get 6,000 or 7,000 people out and riding their bikes. A lot of them, that's the first sportif of that distance that they've ever ridden. It's quite popular with newcomers to the sport. So unfortunately, it won't be happening this year, but we do have a bold plan up our sleeve. There'll be some details coming in the next couple of weeks around our approach to the Great Bike Ride for 2020. Excellent.
You've transitioned quite well. There's been a lot of league activity taking place on virtual cycling. You've had a Zwift tour that's been taking place, where you've had the point of the pyramid, the very elite of our athletes competing against regular sportive riders as well. Do you think that there is likely to be a hybrid version of the sport and the participation that might actually persist longer than the lockdown?
Prior to lockdown, we'd actually been in discussions with Zwift around hosting a national E-championships. It's been done in a number of other countries, and where it will typically be a case where you qualify via a league in your shed or wherever you compete in the event. And then what has happened in other territories is that they'd hire a big arena like the RDS, and you'd have everybody on the same equipment in the stadium and a number of viewers around the stadium watching it play out on the big screen. So we had been in talks with Zwift around an E-National Championships in about September last year. So I think it's certainly here to stay. We'll see something like that in the future. And we're really excited about continuing our Zwift League through the winter months. We think it'll be quite popular. The Irish weather's not always kind to cyclists through December, January, February. So again, I think we're going to see that one here to stay.
And the prospect of putting something into a location like the RDS would obviously be even nicer if you were able to put it into a location like a national velodrome. Where are you on that in terms of the completion of the National Sports Campus with Sport Ireland out in Abbottstown?
We continue working away. So there's been a series of revised schemes and business plans gone into the department from Sport Ireland around the velodrome. We had been promised, once the indoor arena was finished on campus, that the velodrome and badminton centre was the next one in line. So as far as I'm aware, we're still working to that. I'm sure the COVID scenario may cause some level of delay. But I've been on record to say that I'd hoped a shovel would go in the ground on the project in 2020. Perhaps it won't be 2020, but I would still be quite optimistic that we'll see that shovel go in the ground in 2021 at least, and continue to hold the aspiration. And it's key in our plan as well that we have that facility up and running at some point in the Paris 2024 cycle.
And the programme for government does outline a completion of the Sport Ireland campus as well. So that's a good thing. One last thing. Last year, you introduced the community bike scheme, working with AXA, your partners. Has that kept on running through the through the lockdown period, or is it something that's going to be revived?
We have changed that slightly for the lockdown period, and it was unfortunate the way that the timing of the 2K radius scenario had happened. We'd conceived what is called the AXA solo bike rides, and that was all ready to go just before the increased lockdown, if you like, happened. So once it opened up a bit, we had launched the AXA solo bike ride, so that one's up and going. And what we've learnt there is that not everybody wants to ride in a group. People who are getting back on the bike They like the opportunity to perhaps take it out of the shed and go around the block themselves and just work themselves up to being ready to ride in a group. So the AXA solo bike rides has been quite successful. And you've probably seen, and as your viewers may have in the last couple of weeks, there's a large-scale AXA Community Bike Rides TV ad doing the rounds at the moment. And we've had a phenomenal response from that in terms of the number of people registering for bike rides and getting involved with that program. So be fair to say it did stall a little bit through the COVID times, but off the back of that piece of promotional work, it's full steam ahead. And if bike sales are flying out the door as they are, we hope that those people are going to take the opportunity to get involved with the AXA Community Bike Rides and with our clubs and events.
Great. Well, we know that cycling and two wheels is good for the environment. It's good for our own physical and mental well-being. Now we know we've got a 4-year target range of activities that are going to make it even better still. Congratulations on getting that out there. It's available on the Cycling Ireland website, and I'd encourage as many people that have an interest in it to actually take a look. It's oftentimes that we rely on a national governing body to just tell us everything that's going to be done, but it's only through engagement with us as individuals that it really comes to fruition. So congratulations to you, Matt. I'm sure you've enjoyed your first year at the helm of Cycling Ireland. It's probably not quite as you would have expected, but it's a good way to finish it out anyway, and to come through with this. So the very best of luck in its implementation.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Rob.